I truly believe that the online medium will help us deliver the key pedagogical tenets of our times more easily, more realistically. For example, differentiation will be much easier to achieve or to implement in our teaching, simply because we will have the possibility, and it will be actually recommended, to run shorter sessions, possibly with smaller groups, if that allows you. So that brings us very close to a solution to dealing with mixed abilities in a class. Or think of collaboration, which becomes more palpable if you put students who work together on a collaborative document that is updated in real time. Collaboration becomes very palpable, very transparent, and very practicable. Or think of ongoing evaluation, where now you have proper tools to support you in doing that, because all the activities and the records of your students' activities are being kept in this online environment. There is the opportunity for feedback to become more diverse, because we are now using technological devices. So we might start giving feedback in more formats, for example, voice recordings, that might also incidentally sound more personal and more encouraging for the learner. One of the key aspects, however, is that equal opportunities will, in most cases, be available for every learner, because learners will be interacting with us from behind their own screens. So it will be much easier for us to collect responses from all the learners, not just from the learners who are more confident and who are quicker to respond in the real classroom, as it happened in the past. And finally, this is a big chance of really bringing the classroom in line with the digital age reality. So we've got the big opportunity now to set realistic communicative tasks. Let's see this as a huge opportunity. And I'd like you to look at these 6 instances. And we're going to start a third poll for you, asking you, which of these advantages of technology have you been able to experience in your teaching recently? And choose just one, the most important one, the most significant one for you. Taking a look at what types of interaction is available online now, independently of teaching now in general. A brief overview of types of online interaction is here. So we've seen comments and votes and use of emoticons, collaboration in real time on documents that update in real time, or web conferencing solutions, also used maybe together with solutions to share resources, like a learning management platform, for instance. For such interaction, we would need a mix of the elements shown here. To make comments and vote, so pass on feedback, we would probably need something like forums or chat, at least, and blogs. And of course, here you can have the public or the tools publicly available, or versions that are available in your school that are already purchased or authorized or used in the school, with private access only for you teachers and students in that school. And you will need, of course, to decide which of these tools are available or are suitable for, say, primary or secondary level students, or lower levels, upper level students, and so on. In terms of collaboration in real time, you might use Google Documents or projects in the form of maybe creating posters, or the collaborative pinboard, which is best known as Padlet, and also various web conferencing and resource sharing tools in the form of various platforms and virtual learning environments and LMSs. Again, these might be tools that or platforms that your school has, or some that you need to consider using on your own. But let's go to interaction types and formats before the lesson first. Even if we're not online together with our students at the same time, there still can be interaction going on. So first of all, in a flipped classroom model, especially required by the current situation, we would need to send or share resources with our students, which they can read before the class. And for this purpose, you may use a variety of options. You may share the resources in a virtual learning environment, such as the school LMS. Or if your school doesn't have an LMS, you could design your virtual classroom on platforms such as Edmodo or Schoology, and there are many of them out there. But if you just want to take the simplest option, of course, you may simply email your material to the students. And as for the material itself, you can record yourself explaining the main facts of the new unit, but then be careful, keep it short. And for this, you might use a PowerPoint, a short PowerPoint where you add your voice narrative, and you can upload this PowerPoint or email it as appropriate, or you can convert it as a video, or you can use screen recording tools if you want to show something on your computer screen and record yourself explaining that in the process. Or you may simply record your voice and send this as an audio file, and this may be a very simple option. And of course, you might decide to send just links of documents of sources or screenshots of texts that you have found online that would be useful for your lesson. Along with the learning resources, you could start a discussion eliciting comments from the students on the materials that they have read, and you can design such a discussion on the LMS if you have one, once again, or you can create a Padlet inviting contributions from your learners, comments, or you can collect all this in a Google document or anything else similar. Now, if your LMS doesn't provide the option of having a forum or group discussions, of course, you can always use external tools such as Facebook groups or groups on instant messaging tools such as WhatsApp. Of course, such groups would need to be set as private, and you need to control who can join or access them. If you're working with children under 18, it's best, of course, to check your school's e-safety policy again before using any online digital tools. And of course, it's best if you can discuss such e-safety matters together with your learners as well to raise their awareness as well. But such tools make it easy to share both the pre-lesson document, like the vocabulary, for example, if you have no LMS, and also collect students' reactions and comments to them. And also, these tools can encourage frequent communication in English, provided, of course, you set very clear rules and monitor them. For more ideas, you can find a lesson plan on our digital teacher platform dealing specifically with how to integrate the use of instant messaging tools in your language class. Right, so we've covered interaction before the lesson. Let's take a look at what happens or what can happen during the lesson. This is actually the time when most of the interaction will probably take place. So first of all, an overview of the typical interaction tools that you can use. The use of audio, video, like what I'm using right now, my microphone and my web camera. the chat box that you are using, and I could also be using to interact with you. Sharing my screen, which again you can see right now happening. And if available, if your platform has these functionalities, you could use a whiteboard or breakout rooms. Those are things that enhance your learning, your teaching and learning experience in the classroom. But in the next few slides, I'm going to review very quickly the main interaction tools, so these tools that I listed here. And afterwards, we're going to look at typical interaction patterns from the start to the end of the lesson. So in terms of audio and video, of course, you need to check, first of all, whether your internet connection can support both. But it's okay if not to use just audio. And you don't need to use them both or either of them throughout the lesson. So you can decide when to stop using one or both of them. Screen sharing. Screen sharing is very useful. Of course, if you want to show your documents, your slides, any collaborative documents that are being created with the students in real time, any video or images, simply your browser window, and anything else that you would like to show your students. I mentioned the virtual whiteboard. It's a very useful functionality that is an equivalent of your normal board. Plus, the advantages online are that you can paste in, so copy from somewhere else in other documents and paste in, and then annotate images and activities, so you can write over a specific worksheet. You can write or draw or highlight or erase, and then at the end save that work if you think that might be useful for future reference. I'll show you some examples as we move on. Finally, the group chat. Of course, it's what you can see happening right now. You can use the chat to elicit from students answers. You can ask them, so you can have a conversation with your learners, but you can also encourage students to initiate and comment on each other's responses. And you can also use the chat to maybe elicit errors in order to make corrections and so on. This is probably the simplest way of interacting with your learners during the lesson. And it's also the tool that you might use at the beginning of the lesson to highlight or to signal if there are technical difficulties or issues. And finally, breakout rooms can be used to, of course, as you can imagine, to design interaction in small groups or pairs, typically to do speaking activities and any practice activities, or you may put the students in breakout rooms in order to share or to pool ideas before they join the large class again and share their ideas with the whole group. And we'd like to ask you, we're going to start one more poll. At this point, we'd like to know which of these functionalities would you like to be able to use more often in your teaching? Which of these four looks to you most useful and you'd like to use it more? So I can see screen sharing and breakout rooms seem to be the winners. Excellent, very interesting, yes. Not many of you are convinced of the chat, but the chat is what, as I said, what you can use when anything else fails or not much else is available. So let's not disregard it. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and now let's look at some typical types of interaction during the lesson. First of all, as you probably noticed at the beginning of our webinar, the start of a lesson, the start of an online meeting, usually is about meeting and greeting in the main room and checking the technical aspects. But even you could make this maybe these first 2, 3, 4 minutes a bit more personal, more enjoyable. For instance, making making small talk, having a cup of tea, um, and maybe do a short warm-up exercise which need not be related to the lesson, just to help everyone focus on their screens. Because if you think in the analog teaching in our real classrooms, in our normal lives, school and home were different settings where we are capable of focusing on our different roles as a private person within our family, or at school as a learner, as a student, or us as a teacher. So in this situation now, it's becoming more difficult to split these settings, to be sitting at home together with maybe other family members, but still behave as a learner. So why not try to involve them in short physical exercises? For example, get up and spin clockwise 3 times and then switch direction another 3 times. Or ask them what they had for breakfast or for lunch. Ask them to show in the camera what personal object they have next to themselves and say a few words about it. I'm sorry, I normally have a teddy bear here with me. I could have shown it to you and say, well, this is my friend, and so on. So anything that helps you really break the ice. And of course, it's very important to have all the materials you're going to use in the lesson open in the browser bar at the bottom of your screen, so you can quickly share them on your screen at the right moment. Of course, another type of interaction is setting rules. You may want to set the main rules for interacting, as I said earlier, at least at this point, or at least the general rules. And you can always decide to let the students use their microphones or cameras for a specific activity later on during the lesson. Of course, the safest conditions are for students to be able to interact with you or with the whole group via chat only, at least at the beginning, to prevent unwanted interaction during your lesson. And this is all the more important in an online setting than in the real classroom. One thing that you may need to do in your lesson is to go back to the pre-lesson resources and check what students think and invite their comments and queries. And if they posted such feedback before the lesson, go through the posts and discuss them. You can use for this both audio and video at this stage. And if the group is small, you can also decide to let them interact with you live using their microphones or maybe even their cameras. Or you can simply use the chat. And if you want to record ideas to be saved, you can use the whiteboard function. But it's important at the beginning of the lesson to acknowledge all students' contributions and focus on what they've written and not necessarily the accuracy, because the aim here would be obviously to engage and encourage interaction, not to monitor the accuracy of their language very strictly. One other option at this stage of the lesson would be to elicit ideas using an external polling tool such as Mentimeter. I like Mentimeter because it allows you to generate a word cloud based on the responses. And you can use the word cloud, or you can save it and use it for further discussion later on. The central interaction probably takes place around the practice task or tasks that represent the main goal of the lesson. You typically need to share your screen to show it and to say or read out the instructions that are printed on the task. And here you might expect students to respond by contributing ideas on the whiteboard, for example, making sentences using the focus language elements, or to discuss together in small groups or in pairs in breakout rooms. And if such breakout rooms are not available, you will simply use the chat. If appropriate, you may ask students to respond by sharing their work through their camera. For example, showing an illustration or a sentence, or even ask them to share their screens if they have to present some conclusions that they have come to. Of course, if you are confident that they will use this option properly, you can give them such permission at this stage of the lesson only. If you don't have a whiteboard, you can create in advance a Google document and share it with the students before starting the activity. You can share the Google Doc then from your screen while students open a second browser window, access the Google document, enter their contributions, and then get back to the meeting room. If your Google document is shared from your screen, everyone will be able to see the contributions being added in real time as soon as they get back to the meeting room. Of course, part of every activity task or practice task, it's very important to monitor and give feedback. And this is another type of interaction. As you would do in the regular classroom, you need to monitor students' answers and provide feedback, either encouraging their ideas or highlighting errors if they are significant to your lesson aims. And there are several ways of monitoring and giving feedback. For example, giving individual feedback in the chat by selecting specifically the user that you would like to send that chat message to. Or in a group, if you are entering a group in a breakout room, you can listen in and then say a few words as feedback to that pair or small group. Or of course, you can give feedback to the whole group in the main meeting room orally, or again typed in the group chat. And what comes after the lesson is, in terms of interaction patterns, similar to what was before the lesson, of course. You could circulate the follow-up task in the same way as the pre-lesson resources, emailed or posted, uploaded. Students might do individual or collaborative work on a Google document or a Padlet. This work could be text-based, simply, for example, practicing simple past tense, or you might ask them to create something new, such as a text or a simple audio video project, which they might hand in to you or might post on the LMS or on a school blog. Okay, of course, this is the follow-up tasks that they will need to do. But remember, before the lesson, we also designed a discussion just to make sure that they go through the input material. In the same way, you would want to include interaction after the lesson as well. So you might decide to have them leave feedback on what colleagues have posted. You can also, of course, at the end, pass on your own feedback, either individually or in the same forum where it would be visible to the whole group. Now, I said that I would say that I would refer to feedback to writing a bit more extensively, because this is one of the most frequent activities that we tend to do pen and paper. So here are some tips. Hopefully they will help you save time and at the same time design feedback in a more collaborative way. You could include in your feedback just general comments on criteria such as organization or linking or the use of tenses. And you might use color coding to highlight different types of errors or problems. You might want to insert comments in the Word document that the students have submitted. And that feedback you might decide to be written or audio, as I mentioned at the beginning. But you can see a link where, again, to the digital teacher platform where we provide specific training on how to provide feedback to writing. I'm just going to show you a few examples. So this is an example of a way to give feedback, mentioning positive aspects and giving them some ideas for students to write a better version. Another option is to insert, as I said, comments directly in the text, and you may highlight some language errors in a color-coded way. Also, if you like, you can record yourself and embed the audio file in the document. If you see at the bottom of my slide on the left-hand side, there is an object embedded there. Anyway, if there are several people who have inserted comments in the document, who have provided feedback, you can see that it's very easy, very clear to see who inserted which comment. And this is the way, this is how you can find these functionalities in Microsoft Word. You need to open the review menu and click on new comment. And if you want to follow the corrections and the various steps in the adjustments in the text, you need to track changes. If you want to embed your audio feedback, you can click on Insert Object. It's a very tiny icon that is hidden there. But of course, you can simply record your voice without embedding it in the document and just email it to your students. Now, other types of giving oral feedback might be by recording your screen using a screencasting tool. And this is particularly suitable if your students are in the upper secondary or above. And it feels as if you were explaining to the students directly what they need to improve about their text, as if you were sitting together with the student and having a short feedback session personally. Other types of feedback might simply include using a tool to capture parts of your screen and making annotations on it, and then saving that and email it to your student. This will contain your feedback in a visual way. I thought of just two ways that you could organize it. One way would be to combine your holistic observations. For example, you provided comments on organization or register at text level, and then you ask the peers, the colleagues, to find specific examples of such problems in the text, whether it's use of tenses or linking devices. And in this way, you provide guidance to the students performing the evaluation. But of course, it needs to be reinforced here that they need to be willing to provide constructive feedback to their colleagues. And finally, you might have two students correct each other's work, but then you correct only one text, but you could still see from the feedback provided by the other student how aware they are of writing skills and language. Some general points to conclude is that you need to be prepared to allow more time for activities in an online lesson, like the activity setup and the checks of technology, the collection of the answers. All these will take more time. And it's probably a good idea to go for shorter sessions for 30 or 40 minutes with smaller groups. Also, it's because of that better to plan fewer activities and fewer steps, more targeted, and maybe have students do more term-based project work, so along a whole term, because they will find it easier to get together and collaborate, for example, to create a poster or a school magazine or a school blog.